Hey guys, Thomas Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie The Invisible Man. If you end up enjoying this review, then consider joining my Patreon. Any donations are desperately needed. Alrighty then. As I am beginning, I will apologize in advance as the notes I had taken for this movie have been accidentally deleted. It happens sometimes, so I do apologize if any of the events, if I'm misremembering them out of order or anything of that nature. Uh, so with that, I'll try to remember as much as possible. So we see our leading lady, Elizabeth Moss, play a lady named Cecilia, and the movie immediately begins with her waking up from bed uh, and slowly but surely starting to pack up her things and try to get out of the house as quietly as she possibly can. Along the way, she makes a few accidents here and there, included but not limited to trying to help out their, or I guess there was their share dog eventually, that was shock collar trapped inside the house. So she helps the dog out, but in sacrifice of less time on the clock of him getting to her. So she's running and she runs to the street where she's waiting on her sister, which she apparently called, and told her to pick her up at that location at the street. Nonetheless, the sister arrives, taking her sweet time as Cecilia is like telling her to just drive, which kind of just probably should listen to when people say something like that. Man comes up, we see him bash his hand through the window, and then them driving off. So we cut to, I think it was a year or two later, some amount of time later passes, and she is now staying, after being freaked out significantly from that event, staying with this cop who I guess she's also dating, question mark. Their relationship status is a bit odd. I think they just live together. I think that is the extent of their relationship. And he's trying to slowly guide her to try to get her to go back outside, essentially. But when she tries to go back outside, she has, I guess, a temporary phobia of the outside. I'm not sure what the exact name of that phobia is, but it's a fear of going outside for simplicity's sake. So, as she's trying to adjust to her new experience, her sister's like with her as well, and the cop also has a daughter that is also in the story as well. So these are the people who live, or well, besides the sister, in this house. So after a few events of just trying to overcome, she starts to feel that sensation that somebody is watching her, and she can't quite place it quite yet. And for the sake of it, everyone has said that the camera work is pretty smooth and pretty good. I will agree to that extent. Having these really wide shots of Wake where he could possibly be standing. Obviously, the Invisible Man kind of dictates that there will be an Invisible Man, and surely enough, after one particular event of her heading outside very briefly, you see to her left a puff. It's really cold out, so she breathes, and you see the I guess the heat that would be trying to warm up your mouth as you exhale. I think that's how that works. And then you see another one coming off from the left, and you see nobody there. meaning that the Invisible Man has not only just followed her home, but is right next to her. Uh, and due to other events, like her stove catching on fire, uh, and things of that nature, she starts to become more and more paranoid that there is somebody there. Um, and after one particular night, she's like sleeping with the younger uh, girl, like they're sleeping on the same bed. The sheet is removed from them, and then only Cecilia wakes up, which I I guess you must be a really heavy sleeper. I'm talking about the young girl. I'm guessing she must be a really heavy sleeper or something, because, man, having your sheets removed, uh, that'd probably wake most people up, if anything. I don't know. Like, again, unless you're like a really deep sleeper. So Cecilia wakes up nonetheless. She like grabs the sheet and then she tosses it on the chair, thinking that there's someone invisible there. And then she starts to like drag it back, and then the dragging stops, and she's looking down at this blanket that she's no longer able to pull. Uh, and then she like gets spooked. Uh, and the Invisible Man, as we are coming to know, runs off in some direction. I'm not sure which, for obvious reasons. Finally waking the young girl up as she's like screaming because like Cecilia is freaking out, which causes her to freak out, which causes the cop to enter the room. And she's like, oh man, he's gone invisible. The guy from the very beginning of the movie, he's found a way to go invisible. At some point, I forget if this happens like before she interacts with the Invisible Man for the first time. I think it does, or like the Invisible Man's brother says like, oh, my brother is dead or something like that. And both sisters went to the location of like, here, there was like some money settlement involved with the process, and the brother's talking about how much he hates his brother, and so on and so forth, and how there's proof of the ashes or whatever. So yeah, I think that happens before. Again, see, I'm already starting to forget certain parts of the movie, at least in what order. At any rate, so now she's going back into being convinced that there is indeed an invisible man. So when she's alone, after the cop goes to do his job and the daughter does something, I forget where she goes. She starts like poking and prodding along the house, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And as she's trying to uncover things, she eventually comes up to the attic and then gets access to her phone, her items that she went to a job interview. I think this happened, like, again, before, at some point in between the Invisible Man interaction, or before then. She was trying to get her life back together. It probably happened after she became comfortable with going outside again, obviously. So she went to go to a job. Just to describe it real quick, she had the guy across from her is like, oh, show me your portfolio and whatever. And she opens it to see that it's empty, and then lo and behold, that those very items, all her job stuff was in the house, in the attic, along with a phone. So, uh, she is looking around. She picks up all the stuff. She looks down and then feels like there's someone there. So, she grabs a paint bucket that's also conveniently placed there, throws it in, let and behold, she covers the invisible man, making him way more visible, and then he goes running off. So she eventually gets down, and then she's like looking around, following the paint, and like the invisible, you see her walk up to the sink, and you see all the paint being washed off. So no more of that being a clue for her to find the invisible man. But she's, of course, now knowing and trying to hunt him down while not also trying to be hunted down by him. So, among those things, by the way, was an email, like a laptop to an email, I should say. And so, for that email, comes a part that I think more than I will complain about. Because earlier in the movie, we see that the sisters were connecting, and the sister of Emily Moss's character, Cecilia, they were getting along as far as we could tell. And then all of a sudden, she is not in the movie for a while, and the next time we see her, she's instantly complaining about the movie, or about the sister, I should say. And it's only after the fact of finding said email, she discovers that Celia discovers that this nasty email about hatred was written to her sister, which, I don't know how you would get to that conclusion and not ask about it. And the scene is very confusing in it of itself when they're actually interacting as well, when they meet up again. Because the sister first reacts to the money, like, oh, you gave me a bunch of money or something like that. She says something like that, and I didn't understand what she was referring to, because that's not a part of the whole email bit, as far as I know. So, yeah, it does kind of come completely out of nowhere, and, at least it tries to explain itself after the fact. But still, I think it could have been handled a little bit better. I think maybe the sisters' arrangements, and attitudes towards each other should have been a lot more adjusted to fit this sudden attempt at a twist, I guess. I mean, later on in the movie, we see that she's desperate, Cecilia is. She calls her sister to meet up with her, and she's trying to, after going to the guy's house and seeing the suit, the suit that lets him go invisible, which she also didn't put on because she, bumped into him again. So she's at the table and with her sister at this diner. Most people, I've seen other reviews at this movie by now, complained about how there were no cameras. The movie does not show us any cameras at the very most, so there's that. Because most people said, oh, the movie would have been over, you would have been able to tell that the sister, the knife kind of flew into her hand, even though at the same time you wouldn't have been able to catch the actual killer. You might have been able to, at the very minimum, secure her innocence, but the guy was still invisible, so catching him would have been a lot harder. Even if it had been caught on camera, the knife flying back into her arm after the guy decided to kill Cecilia's sister. So she ends up being the one getting arrested. They take her in. She's like screaming her head off. All the way to, I guess, like an institute of sorts. Also like an arresting institute. Where she's given a thing, and then she's like looking at the corner. She's waiting to hear something. She hears the guy's catchphrase of like, I think it was like, surprise, that's what it was. So she knows he's still there somewhere in that room, at least for that moment. So, she's trying to, figure out what to do now. So, eventually, she gets into recontact with the brother. And it turns out that the brother is also in on it all along. Again, this one's even more absurd, actually, I think, than the restaurant not having cameras. This location not having cameras is actually absurd. Not only is this guy visible, but he's talking about making a deal to go back to the murder guy in front of her, and there's no cameras in this room. That's the one I don't believe. So yeah, pretty unbelievable, and eventually she's trying to convince the cop to go to the house because she escapes, and as she is escaping the Invisible Man, she does so, by the way, by tricking the Invisible Man. She gets ready to, like, kill herself. She, like, stabs herself. The Invisible Man makes the print in the room. She says, "Got you." She starts stabbing, like, a few times with the pen. This, for whatever reason, this is the thing that causes the suit to function. And not only that, she stopped stabbing, leaving him alive? Big question mark there. Like, why would you ever stop stabbing? Stab until you know for sure that it's over. So anyways, so she's like running from him, and the suit's like going in and out of invisibility. So another absurd moment happens where cops go in 2 by 2 and they're trying to arrest her, but he's like there, the Invisible Man, and we see him start to take down the cops, and then from time to time his suit will suddenly, and also conveniently when there's an opportune time for his suit to go back on, it does. So this gives her enough chance to run outside, going past a bunch of people, more people, that are just sitting there, like, as if they didn't have cameras to see the cops dying, and be like, what the fuck is going on over there? Nope. So she heads outside. The Invisible Man already had ran outside. She goes to a bunch of cars. She sees one with the trunk open. She gets attacked and attack backs. So, he warns her that he warned her that he was gonna go to their house, so he does. She gives chase. She calls the cop. The cop comes over to the house. The Invisible Man attacks the daughter, and then when the cop arrives, the cop is then attacked as well, nearly killed. But Cecilia comes in with the fire extinguisher, blasts him in the face, and then shoots him, like, I want to say 4 times. So, again, she does stop. I would have stopped, or, she should have stopped, I should say. When the clicking noise happens of, like, when the gun is empty, like, you should have emptied out the bullets on this guy. But I think he was dead anyway. So they see that this was the brother when they unmask him, the one that gave them that deal. So she, the cop says stupidly that it's over, and she's like, no, it's not over. The guy who initially did this to me is still out there. Obviously, it's the brother. And they try to convince everyone that, the brother was like, oh, I'm trapped here or whatever. So she goes to the house, and it doesn't show her getting wired, but she is. So she's trying to get him to admit that he did all the things. She's like, I'll get back in this relationship with you, but you gotta be honest with me. And in some part of his dialogue, I think he does say the word surprise, which gives her all the clues she needs to go to the bathroom, get one of the invisible suits, the one that she left there earlier, and come in and make it look like he killed himself. Take off the suit, go outside, and she is soon joined by the cop, who's like, well, hop on. And then she's like, he killed himself. Wink, wink. He sees the suit after getting beaten and after getting his daughter attacked. He's like, yeah, that's what hop on. And then she leaves with a smile and satisfaction across her face. And that was The Invisible Man. The movie is well acted. The performance is really great. The story is pretty, pretty straightforward. Of like, this guy is stalking her. And continues to stalk her with this invisible suit after the fact. I guess the bigger issues with this movie come from the logistics of the movie, of like, oh, there could have been cameras here, which would have ruined this part of the movie, or that didn't look like, that Celia hit the little girl, she was too far. Logistic things like that, they could have easily fixed. I think they could have honestly fixed both of the things that I mentioned, and I'm thinking that there might have been 1 or 2 more little moments of, like, logistically speaking, that could have been tightened up. So, I think I'll give this movie a 6 out of 10. I think fixing those logistics would have only heightened the experience of the movie. They could have shown a camera in that police room, but they could have been like, it's broken or something. I don't know. Just give us something to be like, okay, sure. Because as is, it's like, I don't think that would happen the way it happened. And, you wanna, in movies like this, you wanna have that suspension of disbelief. You wanna be like, if there was an invisible man For all intents and purposes, I believe this could happen this way. That's the result you want to aim for, usually, in a movie. And when you have to go, I don't know if it would happen that way, it does take away from the movie. So that's my full review of The Invisible Man, and if you enjoyed it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head over to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page. Any donations are desperately needed. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.